What's up, this your boy Super Mario 1990 coming at you with a DMX tribute. My second favorite rapper of all time passed away yesterday. And so I just want to do like a tribute, just like an overview of his career. And then I'll like get into personally like how his career and how his music impacted me and just like some of my like favorite memories of DMX. But yeah, just yesterday I heard the news of his death. I was like on my break where I was at work and I saw an emotional tweet that somebody had put out, and I was like, oh man, if someone is like tweeting something like this, then that must means he passed away. And so I looked on the internet and like everything just kept saying X is dead at age 50, and so I'm like, oh man, so it really is real. So I had to like triple check, quadruple check sources and everything because people will be trolling on the internet too and all of that. So I'm like, I just didn't want to believe it, but there it was. And he suffered from a heart attack due to a drug overdose. And so for a whole week he was on a coma, and they said he was brain dead and in a vegetative state. And it was last Friday, but I didn't hear about it till Monday. And I was like, oh man, I didn't know he was. I didn't know this about X, and so I was just like really, really worried. I remember the other day I had like checked on it. Like each day I was like checking on his status, and his manager said, yeah, he's still alive. But then it was just like 12 hours after that, I'm finding out that he's dead, and it was just crazy because while I was looking at that tweet when I found out that he had passed, I had music playing, and it was just in a shuffle, and Get At Me Dog, my favorite DMX song, was playing at the time where I saw this tweet, and I'm like, man, that just hit hard. Like it was just eerie. Like it was crazy. And it's not even like I was consciously listening to DMX all this week because in light of this news. But I mean, I'm a like old head, like I grew up in the '90s, so I pretty much predominantly listening to my old school music. I still pretty much listen to that. I listen to like some new music, but not a whole lot. So it's not, it's not irregular for DMX to pop up. X should be popping up like at least a few times a day when I'm listening to music. It's just that common. He's my second favorite rapper of all time, so all of his music is in there. Like his stuff is on heavy rotation in my playlist, so it's not uncommon. But it was still crazy that specifically my favorite track with him was playing at the time where I found that out. And so, DMX, just to get into the overview of his career, he did start rapping in the early '90s. He was actually signed on to Columbia, but his music never got released under them. They didn't promote him well. Things just didn't get out. But Irv Gotti made a suggestion that Def Jam should sign him onto the label. And so he really got things kicking off in '98 when he dropped his debut album, It's Dark Outside and Hell is Hot. He had hit tracks like Rough Riders Anthem that really got him out there. The whole Rough Riders crew, it really put them on. They like just off the heels of his success and his album sales, and just on DMX's back, Rough Riders grew. And yeah, he had tracks like Effing with D. I gotta say that so I don't get demonetized. I gotta like edit certain words out. But he had that. He had Stop Being Greedy, and then Get At Me Dog. Like I said, my favorite track, like tied with What's My Name. Those are my two favorite tracks. But Get At Me Dog was out there too, and hit record. Sold platinum right out the gate. And he also had another album that very same year, '98, Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood. Tracks like Slippin', which I think most DMX fans would say that Slippin' is his like most important track. Like that's where he poured his emotions, he poured his heart out, his heart, soul, blood, sweat, tears, like everything. He was like completely vulnerable. He let all his emotions out on that track. And it was just like a nice, soothing, smooth song too. And his energy was just so aggressive on there. And it's just a very important like soulful song in my opinion. And like I mean, I always liked it as a kid. Like I was 8 years old when X first came out, but when I was 16 I was diagnosed with cancer. I had to do 2 years of chemotherapy, and so sometimes I would just like lay down and I would play Slippin' on I would play it on repeat, and it always just kept me calm and cool and relaxed because the beat was just so soothing and so smooth. But then X would get on there, and X was just, he was like very ferocious and aggressive. He had that energy, And that just kept me with this fighting spirit. So I had this like fighting spirit from X's voice, and I was just like kind of like calm, cool, and collected all at once. And that's how that track felt too. That track was just all of those different energies. It's like it may sound chaotic just describing it, but if you hear the song and if you already heard the song, you know that that combination just worked in an odd way. And X just, I feel like, just had unmatched energy. Like he was just purely raw. He was just honest, vulnerable, and he just let his pain, his anger, he let all that out there and put it on there. And his energy is pretty much unmatched. Like the closest rapper I can say that comes close is Tupac, but other than that, in that regard, he's pretty much unmatched, I think, in my opinion. But Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood was hot. He had that. He had, It's All Good, No Love for Me, a few other tracks on there. He had the Damien series started on there, and those songs are really good. DMX was really good for duality in his music. That's what I really liked about his music. He would talk about, Earl Simmons and then Darkman X. And that was kind of like his like inner struggle, his inner demons. Like he wants to be a good person, but circumstances and, situations force him to be, the street dude. He got to be tough and protect himself. And so, he out here doing bad in these streets. And so he just always had that inner conflict going on. And I feel like it was very relatable because, not like, like in X's situation, not everybody is living rough like that. But we all have our demons or our insecurities, or, we all kind of like put on, I guess, like a different person to protect ourselves, from hurt and pain or whatever. And, or at least most of us, we deal with it some type of way, some type of, thing to help us get through, block out, whatever kind of tricks we can do. But I felt like his duality was very relatable, even though it wasn't like, oh, it's not matching his lifestyle, but just like I got my own, like just the themes of it, I think you can relate to. And so that's why, like, I really liked those themes in the portrayal of duality, because he would use different voice inflections, like you would get a sense of the story he's telling, because he would like do like a demon voice, a demonic voice, and then he'll do like his regular DMX voice, and he'll be like, nice, good guy kind of, then he'll be like rough and gritty. So it's like, visually, hearing it, visually what perspective he's speaking from and how he feels on both of those sides. I always thought that was like just a really cool tool that he would use in his music. It was really cool, like a great way of storytelling, and just a way to like hear his music and really feel it and understand what he was going through and the message that he was trying to put out. But yeah, he dropped both of those albums in '98, and those albums were both #1 sellers within the same year. He's still the only rap artist to this day to have ever accomplished 2 #1 albums within the same year. And then in '99, the man just didn't take a break. He had 2 albums in 1 year. Then '99 he drops, and then there was X. Personally, that's my favorite album of all time. And I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's DMX's highest selling album that he's made. So, and then there was X. There was so many bangers on this one. Like, this is the album that was responsible for Party Up. And now Party Up, I think every DMX fan would pretty much say this is his most successful song. Not necessarily, I'm saying it's his best song, but the most successful as far as like commercialism and mainstream. Like, this is the track that you heard on the radio a million times a day. This is the track that today on oldie stations you'll hear every once in a while. You heard this song on plenty of movies, and I don't think it'll ever stop. You'll still hear this song in newer movies that get made. Like, you will always hear this song in somebody's movie. This was just that song. It was meant as like a club banger, but when X gets in the studio and he drops music, he gives you just that dangerous energy. So it was kind of like, it was a club banger, but X got in the studio like, nah, look, this is the type of song that if somebody or somebody's done push you to the edge and you're on the verge of snapping, this is the song that's like, yo, it's okay to snap. Y'all gonna make me lose my mind, and y'all gonna make me go all out, all that. Like, this was that track. And so it was just like a really fun track. I feel like it was relatable to a certain degree, whether you had like a lot of anger or not, it was kind of relatable. You know what I mean? Like, some things you just can't do. Like, when he said, you about to be missed, we'll bring some old man fishing. It's like, okay, I ain't going that deep with it. I'm not that mad. But it was a relatable song. I felt like somebody will make you mad when he be like, "I'm gonna make me lose my mind," like just unprovoked kind of like just energy that you got just hearing that song, and so that was like a real good jam. But he had "What's My Name," and like I said, that's another one of my favorite tracks. Like I can never decide between "Get at Me, Dog" and "What's My Name." Those are both my favorite tracks, and those were like the two hits on there. He had "Good Girls, Bad Guys." He had "What These Bees Want," featuring Cisco. And, he had Fame. He had The Professional. He had Here We Go Again. He had More to a Song. Now, okay, like a lot of these tracks that I mentioned weren't hits, but this album just had so many bangers. I felt like the whole album, like you could shut a radio station down and just have the DMX hour and play this whole album. Like I felt like that's how good and powerful that album was. And I'll talk more about it. And then there was X, like my personal impact that it had on me. But he did those two, and then in 2001, he took that break. I'm pretty sure he was touring though. He had like a huge tour of Rough Riders, and even Rockefeller. They like had like a joint tour, so he was still putting in work. But he dropped the Great Depression, and that album had Who We Be. I think that was like another important song. I think probably just as important as Slippin', but that was a really good one. And he had School Street on there, and he had I'm a Bang, tracks like that. And then he had Grand Champ. And these first five albums that I'm mentioning, these were like his highest selling albums. He had a few albums after that, like The Year of the Dog, again, back in 2006, but in a few other albums, but those didn't sell nearly as well as his first five. But yeah, like on Grand Champ, he had Get It on the Floor, he had Ayo Kato, he had Where the Hood At, another good track that a lot of people like. And so, he had Shot Down with 50 Cent and Styles P. I like that, like collectively. I really like that collaboration. That was a really good song. And, just hearing 50 Cent and X, because 50 Cent, he's like one of my like top rappers too. So that was like a really, really cool team up. And I always like Styles P and Jadakiss, I always liked them with the Rough Riders. So that was just like a real cool track. Like, man, these three cats on one track, this is going to be a banger. This is heat. And so, he had that. But those first five albums are like his most successful. And then during that time, during his prime, he also was doing movies. His first role, I believe it was his first role, or at least one of his earliest roles, was in Belly. And, starring him and Nas, Method Man was in there, T-Boz. They had like a lot of music stars, in that film. And it was a really good urban flick. And then he started doing blockbuster films too. Now, at the time, that caught me out of the blue because they had him. I remember Romeo Must Die was like the first big film, because Belly was more. It was more the urban drama, so it wasn't widely released. It wasn't widely talked about, not marketed, in a very popular light. But this was like more of the Hollywood stuff when he did Romeo Must Die. And honestly, I was surprised to see the man in the trailer. I'm like, yo, he in a Jet Li movie, and it was like him and Aaliyah, another one, rest in peace to her as well. But I'm like, yo, this movie looks really good. Now, I was only like about, I think like 11 at the time, 10 or 11. It came out like 2000, 2001, around that time. And so, honestly, because my parents, they're not into action movies. And so I'm like, man, I really wish they would take us to see that, because I really want to see that. And I was a big Jet Li fan too. I love Jet Li ever since we grew up before when he was the villain. And so I'm like, I know our parents ain't going to take us to see this. But they was like, yo, we want to see Romeo Must Die. I'm like, oh, y'all do? They say, yeah, Ali and DMX is in. I'm like, oh, cool. Okay, cool. So we got to see it. And it was really good. But I was a little salty because my boy X only had 2 scenes. And then, spoiler alert, they kill him off in the second scene. And I'm like, yo, how you just going to kill X like that? Like, come on. And I remember I was in elementary school because I was only like 11, right? And so I remember at school, it was just horrible. Like, we just like used to just flex on other kids, like who saw the movie on opening weekend. And so like me and my friends, we would like just test people, like, yeah, did you see Romeo Must Die? And like, yeah. Like, nah, you ain't see it. How many scenes did X get? Oh, X was like most of the movie. He was like, nope, you ain't see it. And then somebody would like just take it too far and just be like, yeah, does X survive? And they like, oh, of course he survives. Yeah, you ain't see it. Then the other person just looking like, oh, wait, so you mean to tell me X is dead, but his name ain't Romeo? y'all just trying to trick me, right? And it was just horrible, man. But he was in that, and he two scenes, but he made his presence felt in that movie. And Warner Brothers, they were supposed to do like a multi-movie deal with him, multi-picture deal, and he did Cradle to the Grave and he did Exit Wounds. Cradle to the Grave I felt was decent, but the biggest highlight of that movie is that he did X Gon' Give It To You, one of his biggest tracks. And I was pissed at the time because I didn't know this. I didn't know this until like a later interview. I just found this out a couple months ago. I was just watching somebody's YouTube video on DMX, and X said that he wanted that song on one of his albums, because I was pissed it wasn't on one of his albums, because my dad had his first 4 albums. He didn't have Grand Champ, but he had the first 4. And around the time that song came out, I'm like, this should be on one of his albums. It should be on Then There Was X, or it should be on The Great Depression or something. It should be on The Great Depression. So I'm like, why is this song not on here? But I found out, I guess, for Joel Silver, he really wanted that song for the film. And X was like, I want to do it for my album. But he agreed to just do it for the film anyway. And I guess for whatever reason, he couldn't put it on the soundtrack and his album at the same time. There was also another song he did, Ain't No Sunshine. I really liked that song. And he did that for Exit Wounds. And Exit Wounds I thought was a really good movie. I really liked Exit Wounds. But those were like his 3 blockbuster films. And then he did a movie, Never Die Alone. Now this one, it was good. I thought it was like his best movie, next to Belly. Like, I feel like Belly and Never Die Alone, if you take his music career and you take the hip-hop persona that DMX had, Belly and Never Die Alone, those movies both capture that truthfully. Like, they tried to make him like a Hollywood blockbuster star in the other films, and that was cool. But I felt like his acting really was strong in those movies because he could play more of what you hear from in his music. So it kind of all went together. And I can tell he was probably more passionate about those roles. Even like Never Die Alone was like a little too dark though. It was like, oh, this is like a little too believable. I know it's just a movie, but it's like, it's a little too dark. I hope this is really just a character. But, I honestly would have liked to have seen him do more movies like that, because it was a more accurate portrayal of the artist that I listen to when I play his music. So, but the Hollywood thing just kind of dissipated, because during that time, and even with the music too, during that time, he had like his drug addiction really started at the age of 13. Someone laced weed with crack cocaine, and so he's been addicted to drugs on and off ever since then. And so that would play a part in his career. Like, he would struggle a lot. He also had personality disorder, multiple personality disorder, I believe. And I just found this out myself when I watched the Rough Riders documentary last year. I didn't know that about DMX, but it actually made so much sense because, he did have so many personas in his music. So now I can see like, oh, he was just putting that into his art as well. But I don't know exactly when he got diagnosed, but that was the first time I had ever heard him talk about it. This is the first time I had actually ever heard of that about DMX. And so I'm like, oh, wow, okay. Well, a lot of things make so much sense now, too. And a lot of issues that he had, too, like the drugs, just, drugs don't help people, period. But let alone if you have that coupled with, multiple personality disorder. And DMX just had a really rough childhood, even, in the house, too, and everything. And so, it was just like that coupled with doing stints in and out of prison or jail so many different times. And so his career pretty much kind of faded in light of all of these, battling his demons and all of that dark stuff. All of it kind of like derailed his career. The movie career dissipated. So his last stint was for tax evasion, and when he came out of that, he was also in rehab too. So it actually started looking good. Like the last couple of years, it actually started looking really good for X, because people were noticing like, oh, okay, he's gaining weight, he's looking more normal and everything. It was like a tell that he really is, off the drugs. He got a handle on his addiction. He was more spiritual than ever. He was giving his life to God more. He was actually doing sermons too, to people. And so it seemed like he was really doing good. And he even made an appearance on Versus, which, especially for an old head like me, I love Versus. And so it was DMX versus Snoop Dogg. And now, as much as I like verses, honestly, I've never been there for a versus day one. I've never been there. So it was like I can like the two artists and know the two artists and like, oh, I grew up off of their music, but I would just like catch it when I catch it. If somebody leaked it on YouTube, I would watch it later on whenever I had time. Or I would just go to the Spotify playlist and they would put it on there the day after or whatever. But when they said it was gonna be DMX going against Snoop Dogg, it's like, okay, this is my second favorite rapper of all time. Snoop Dogg is like my top 10, at least top, like nothing past 15. If I like really have to think about it one day, top 10 or top 15. It was like, it's the battle of the dogs. Like, I'm going to be there day one. And they're like, yeah, well, you know, these verses, they don't never start. They be on CP time. They be late. I'm like, bruh, I don't care. Look, I will be an hour early. I'll be an hour before they supposed to start. Now, if my device, if the battery dies, I'm plugging it up. I will watch the thing plugged up if I have to, but I'm going to be there for DMX versus Snoop. And he looked like he was in a really good place. So it looked like he was doing good, doing well. But unfortunately, what you just seen, you know, this whole week, you know, kind of was like he must have just fell back on the bender. And unfortunately, now, you know, he's no longer with us. But, you know, in a nutshell, that was his career. And DMX had a huge impact on me. Like I said, he was my second favorite rapper of all time. So when I was listening to his music, I just had so many like great memories. And like I said, I love the duality of his music. Like what I really connected with the most was just the music that he made for people. Because I remember him saying one time that, you know, like not everybody, you know, is living sweet. Not everybody got all of this stuff. Because like he wasn't big on materialism. He was never about materialism, you know. So he just always made real, honest, raw, pure music. And he always gave his like his full thoughts. He wasn't afraid to pull no punches, hold back nothing. He put it all out there. And it was just music that I think anybody can listen to. Like if you get past like the rough, crazy, like, you know, all the like slick talk gangster lyrics, you get underneath, like there's some things just about like inner struggle and inner turmoil and just doing your best to like, you know, just fight, you know, even beyond, you know, circumstances, you know, just doing your best to try to be you, because he would put his battles with his demons in there, especially in the song Damien 3. Like Damien 3 and Stop Being Greedy are my favorite songs when it comes to his like duality and his like, you know, battling demons and, you know, trying to have Earl Simmons come out on top over DMX. DMX is like, you know, the crazy rough, you know, dude who's violent, mean, angry. And then Earl Simmons is like the man who's trying to be good, trying to do good, trying to be spiritual. So it's like those two different sides. And, you know, it's kind of like it's a battle of who's winning, you know. And so I felt like his music was relatable in that aspect because it's kind of like we all got something that we struggle with, whether it's internally, externally, or both, maybe a combination of both. So it was like it was music I felt that was made for everyday people going through some type of struggle and just trying to help you just get that energy to just, you know, just like fight through it and just do your best to come out on top. And I think his music just help you be honest with who you are, because he was honest with who he was. Like he would put everything out there, don't hold it back. He would put it all out there, even how he felt, what was on his heart, whether it was gruesome, whether it was crazy, illogical, whatever. He would just put it out there. And so I really always appreciated that. And like man, just going through his like memories, like just a lot of his songs playing on the radio. And I remember my brother, he had like he had the Xbox and he had like the Grand Theft Autos. And so what was cool about the Xbox was you can put your CD, like your music CDs in the Xbox, and you could, you know, basically rip the album and play the album. Certain video games can play songs from there. And so I'm playing like, you know, Grand Theft Auto 3 or whatever. And every time I'm playing GTA 3, if I'm driving in the car, I'm playing the X track, just driving around Liberty City, listening to Party Up and What's My Name. It was like real cool. But mainly too, like going to school, like all the time. Because what happened, I had like a Walkman, because this is old age, this is old era stuff. So I got the Walkman, the CD player, right? And the only album that I actually owned was Ludacris's Word of Mouth. But my dad, he had a huge collection. He had all the CDs. And he even had cassette tapes that he still kept too. So he had every DMX album except for Grand Champ. So like from DMX's Prime, he had 4 out of 5 of those albums. So he had, It's Dark Outside, Hell is Hot. He had Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood. He had, and then there was X, my favorite album of all time, like I said earlier. He had The Great Depression. And so he's got all these albums, right? And so in elementary school, my dad drove me back and forth to school, so we was always playing tracks on the radio. But when I was in junior high school, starting in 7th grade, I had to take the bus back and forth. So it was kind of like a 40, 50 minute commute or whatever, right? And I'm like an 80% introvert, man. Like I kind of like just stay to myself. I ain't had no friends back then, nothing like that. So I kind of just like want to, just sit in the back corner, and just chill with my music. And so what was depressing was I only had that one album, Ludacris Word of Mouth. And that's cool. I love Ludacris back in the day. I love that album, right? But I don't want to listen to that every single day. So my dad was real cool. He was really nice about letting me borrow some CDs. And my dad, he does not let you borrow nothing. Like even me. So it's like he was like, you know what, you only got that one album. You know what, you take care of your stuff, you keep stuff clean, you bring stuff back, you don't break nothing. So I'm trusting you with these albums. If you want to take some albums with you, you could. And so back at that time, I had this AND1 backpack, and it came with this CD holder. It was like, shaped like a basketball because it was AND1, and like you zip it around, and it had 10 different disc slots. Now, since the only album I had personally was Word of Mouth, because it was like a Christmas present that I really wanted, I had that album. So that album took up the first slot. So I had 9 slots left. And so I'm looking through my dad's library. It looks like one of those record stores, right? So I'm like, man, what do I get? I know I got to get Pac and I know I got to get X, right? So I'm like looking through and I'm like, okay, I'm trying my best to like pick like one album from X, pick one album from Pac. I just couldn't do it. I grabbed all of DMX's albums, right? So I got 5 spaces occupied, 5 spaces left. And then from Pac, it's like I like All Eyes on Me, and I like Until the End of Time. Problem is, both of those are double albums. Now I'm trying my best to take one CD from each, but I'm looking at the track list and I'm like, nah, Pac got a lot of stuff I like in this section, a lot of stuff I like in this section. So I gotta take all 4 of those CDs from those 2 albums because they're double books. So X and Pac, they being greedy, they taking up collectively 8 spaces. Ludacris got 1, that's 9. I got 1 more space left. And so that one, I'm kind of like, okay, let me take Ice-T one day, let me take Nas one day, let me take Jay-Z's Blueprint one day. Like, that slot was like empty for whoever. But those other 4 slots, X took over, and then Pac took over the other 4. And so that other one was kind of like, it was like a designated hitter, whatever I felt like that day. Craziest thing, though, is that when I get on the bus, and when I got on the bus, like I said, 80% introvert, I don't want to be bothered with nobody. Even if I did have friends to talk to, I don't want to talk to them early in the morning, 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to do all that. It's too early in the morning to be hearing your mouth. I just want to hear my music and chill, right? And so what I found out was that when I was playing my CD player, the album that I would play the most was And Then There Was X. So going back and forth, to school during junior high, that's when I finally learned that And Then There Was X was my favorite album of all time. Because I can just pop that in, put it on shuffle. And my goal was to be like, okay, I want to hear this track and this track and this track. And then I'll switch a CD. Because I was like sitting in the back corner. I was sitting next to the window too. So I could just like safely, I felt uneasy about sitting in the aisle because I felt like, okay, the CDs could break and drop and all that. I could just sit in the corner. And I had one of the first stops too. Like when the bus came, I was one of the first people to get picked up. So I kind of like had my pick of the litter. I'd be like, okay, I'm on the bus, cool, one of the first people. My seat always available, right? And people on the school bus, they pretty much sit in the same spot anyway, most people. So it's kind of like, okay, once you got that spot, somebody see you, that's like, oh, that's that person's spot. That's where they be sitting at all the time. I ain't gonna mess with it. So mine was like in the very back corner to the left. That's where I'm at, right? And so, and sometimes you got that little tire. You know how that tire come up? So you got your leg like right up here. I actually kind of like that. It's cramped it up for most people, but for me, I'm real skinny. So I can just be like sitting there chilling. And I got my stuff and I'm like, changing my CDs, popping stuff in, because like I say, this is ancient times. This is before the iPod. Well, the iPod came out about a year after, but I couldn't afford it. I didn't get one till 2008. But at that time, I'm like switching out my CDs and stuff. but it was always like play a track or two and then switch a CD. But when I put in there was X in there, I just could not take it out. I had the intention of listening to Party Up and What's My Name, and that's it, right? But Shuffle will play something, and I'm like, man, I can't turn it off. Shuffle will play another track, I can't turn it off. It'll play more to a song, I'm vibing with it. It'll play Good Guys, Bad Guy, Good Girls, Bad Guys, right? Can't turn it off, I'm vibing with it. It'll play Here We Go Again. Can't turn it off, I'm vibing with it. It'll play What These Bees Want. Can't turn it off, I'm vibing with it. It's like by the time we get to school, the album is still playing. So I'm like, man, I really like this album. I just cannot stop playing it. And I'm surprised it's still standing to this day. It's not scratched up or nothing, man. But that's how I found out that was my favorite album. And that was just like really cool. Just you had to be careful though, because listening to DMX, especially early in the morning, feeling some type of way, you had like a lot of unprovoked energy for no reason. Because X's music, like I said, he brought that energy, that crazy energy. So you would just be hyped for no reason. Like, I think that goes for anybody. You have to be really, really careful. You can't really listen to X in public because you will just be like, what? And the person on the other end be looking like, yo, I ain't even say nothing, bro. Like, calm down. I ain't even do nothing. So, I mean, his music was just like, it was just really fun, really entertaining. And I really liked it, really vibed with it. And I know, like, when I was listening to What's My Name or Get At Me, dog, people must have been looking at me crazy because I was like bobbing like this, real hard. You just can't help it because X just brought that energy. You just couldn't help it. I know people was looking like, yo, this dude, he off the hook today. I don't know what's wrong with him, but I'm going to stay away from him because he over there, he doing too much. What he listening to? Can you hear the thing? What he listening to? He got X going? Oh, yeah, stay away from him. He got X going. Nah, they be mad when they be playing the X. I don't know. But, yeah, man, that was really, really good. And I always wanted Grand Champ. And so that's the only album I didn't have, right? And so I was 13 when it came out. And when you 13 and them albums got the parental advisory on it, you can't get it if you're a little kid. So I'm like trying to go to the local store, like, yo, man. It's like, yo, I'm going to need some ID. I'm like, oh, well, I got a school ID. Does that work? Man, give me the CD back, But the good thing was when I finally had my iPod Touch in '08, I really just like went back and I got I'm kind of pissed to this day because like I never supported his sales physically. I never got that CD, but I got I got his songs on it. Like all the songs that I really, really liked that I heard, I got from there and I was able to buy it off of there, like 99 cents a pop. But I felt like I robbed X personally because I'm like, man, I don't have the actual whole CD though, man. I wanted to support you like that, but I ain't got it. I should have. I ain't know nothing about Amazon back then because back then it was kind of like I bought what was in the store. And so if it's old, if it's like, past a year, they don't sell it no more. So I'm really thinking like, yo, there's no way to get it then unless, I'm going to like one of them old stores who keep old stuff. So I'm thinking like, yeah, X is pretty much, that album's pretty much gone. But, I one day I should go back and just get like a physical new copy of it somewhere. I'm sure somebody has like something where there's something like a new condition, Grand Champ album. But and he had a huge impact on me, man. His movies, like I said, I liked watching them in movies, especially Never Die Alone and Belly. I wish he was, able to do more movies like more gritty kind of movies like those because that, like I said, really captured his hip hop persona spirit. But yeah, man, just real sad that he's gone. And second favorite rapper of all time, I think he was a GOAT, up there only behind Tupac. In my opinion, and my top 5 songs from X was it's a tie between Get At Me Dog and What's My Name. I just can never choose between those two, but it's like I really like those 2 tracks. I liked F1D. I would say that's number 2. I got 2 songs at 1. I got that at number 2. Going to a Song was a really good song. I really liked that one. Slipping, and that really helped me get through tough times, like I said. And I would say Stop Being Greedy at number 5. And yeah, those are my top 5 songs, man. But rest in peace to DMX. I will always be listening to his music. Like I said, to this day, I was still listening to his music. So for me, it's like it's just business as usual. It's gonna hit different now that he's no longer with us. So it's gonna be real sad. I might be out here in these streets with like a tear in my eye, man. So Just really sad. But I'm just praying for his family, all his kids, that they doing their best to get through it and keep their head up. But yeah, keeping X's music alive, his legacy. And y'all, like, DMX fans out there, let me know what y'all top 5 DMX songs are, your favorite DMX album, and if you like this movie. So what's your favorite movie? I'm pretty sure most people gonna say Belly. My favorite was Never Die Alone. I really like Belly, but Never Die Alone I felt like was like my favorite because that's when I saw X. Like, you heard his dark music, but I saw X like kind of like personify his evil in that film. It was like, man, dude can really go there on film. It was kind of scary because it's like, can he really go there in real life too? I would hope not. I would think DMX is a little more tame than that. But yeah, y'all, let me know, y'all favorite DMX moments and memories. But yeah, rest in peace, DMX. And this your boy, Super Mario 1990, and I'm out. Peace in.